It is said that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tested. And Kenya is said to be a democratic country. In this video, I'll talk about what our forefathers were trying to achieve when they fought for Kenya to become a democracy, but also what are those things about our country that make it difficult to achieve the ideals of a functional democracy. My name is Susan Wanjiku. I'm the founder of Wanjikuseyeke, and here I discuss the relationship between economic development and governance so that you can understand, engage, and influence the matters that affect you and I. Welcome to Wanjikuseyeke. So, welcome to the second part of the Real Mheshimiwa series, where I'm doing some civic education as we prepare for the election. So I'm not really talking about economic stuff. So to start us off, we hear that Kenya is a democracy. So what is it? Now, democracy is commonly known as a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, which means that we choose some of our own to form a government that ideally will address our needs as a people or as a country. And we choose them through elections. And that's what our forefathers fought for the right for us as Kenyans to come together and decide who we want to run the country and how we want our country to be run.
Do you believe that one day Kenya will be governed by Africans?
I believe that one day Kenya will be governed by a democratic government, representative and elected by the people. And by the people, I include anybody who decides to make Kenya his home.
In how many years?
Who accepts to be treated as an equal citizen with everybody else.
Now, democracies like Kenya ideally want to achieve outcomes like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of the media, and free and fair elections as a means to an end, and not just so that you can make noise. And it's because information rules. Ideally, the more aware you are about what your political leaders and government is doing, the more you understand how it affects your life, and the more likely you are to select better leaders. And the key word here is ideally, because kwa ground vitu hukua different. But the catch is that it's this same government and political leaders that have the power to take away this freedom from you and punish you from exercising it. Punish you for exercising it. For example, you could be beaten up by the police for protesting about corruption, and the police here is just an instrument carrying out orders from above. Then another thing democracies try to achieve is that we as the citizens get to enjoy a wide range of human rights, including a functioning economy, that is your right in this country, to enable you to either start your own business or be employed, which is your right to work. It's also meant to ensure that the cost of living is reasonable so that you can afford the basics of life, such as food, housing, healthcare, and clothing, and also because of many other factors and circumstances in life. And because of that, people in a country will never be 100% equal. So ideally, a government will come in to reduce those things that cause people to become unequal. For example, to reduce unfairness in education outcomes, the government has to make sure that the public education systems are of high quality, so that even those who can't afford to go to a private school, they can still get quality education and manage to complete whatever level of school that they're enrolled in. And this is one of the reasons why it's very difficult to have that discussion about CBC and whether our politicians should have degrees, because there's too much inequality in education in this country. Now, for a democracy to function properly, some conditions must hold. For one, everyone has to be equal before the law. Everyone must respect the law. There has to be a neutral and independent judiciary, and there has to be access to information. And one very important one is that you as a citizen have to participate in the affairs of your country. Why? Because democracy is only a democracy if there are checks and balances, and that's the only thing that can maintain it. you need to hold the people that you choose accountable, and you can only hold them accountable if you have information, and you can only have information if they're transparent or information is leaked. And once you get this information, it needs to be acted on by the justice system. So if the people you elect do anything that puts us all at risk economically or in terms of security, bad policies, and the different forms of corruption, we should be able to kick them out of office by impeaching them, and even going a step further to make sure that they can't be in government again, plus even jail them. Then we replace them with people who know what they've been elected to do. That's the ideal of a democracy, and it's very possible to achieve that. But even with that in mind, there are some biases and conditions in Kenya that make people throw all reason out of the window during election season. They choose to be blind to the truth and put all our lives and livelihoods at risk by voting in and supporting bad leadership and ultimately threatening our democracy. First thing, tribalism. Now this is a very straightforward one. It's having an unwavering support for a political leader just because their tribe is the same or similar to yours, or dismissing a political leader because they are from a different tribe than yours. Now, this is regardless of the character of the person, and even if you were given certain facts about this person, whether positive facts or damaging character flaws, you wouldn't change your mind or accept the truth about them just because of their tribe. Now, the second thing is personality cult, and sometimes this can be tied to tribalism. So personality cult is having excessive public admiration for or devotion to a political leader. So you make an idol of this person, and same thing, you barely question what they stand for and if they've been consistent in doing it. And obviously no one is perfect, but there's some truth to patterns. And the three most popular presidential candidates in this election are personality cults. Ruto for the bottom-up proposition, which is being sold as being against the establishment. Raila has had a very consistent base for decades, and Wajakoya for anyone who is unconventional and anyone wanting to use their vote as a protest against these leaders who've been around for years. The third thing is sycophancy. And sycophancy is excessive obedience and desire to please someone in order to gain advantage, and highlight in order to gain advantage. Now this Jubilee administration has taken sycophancy to a whole new level. The politicians from Jubilee who attempted to speak against what Jubilee was doing in the country at different points in time, especially when it came to the issues of debt or BBI, were demoted from different leadership positions in parliament, like being removed from committees in parliament. And just a few examples, there is Kithure Kindiki, Isaac Mwaura, Kimani Ichung'wah, Aden Duale, and many others. And this is not to say that all of these guys are innocent. They just became victims of the system they created. Because some of these guys really supported the violence and mistreatment of ODM supporters, and they supported the punishment of anyone who dared to oppose the system, and also supported the heavy propaganda and lies being spread against activists, which is the reason for the mentality that you have against activists today. So all this happened when Jubilee was still united. So with that in mind, do you think that MPs and senators will be able to carry out their mandate of holding the executive accountable if they know they're going to be punished for it? And then if you had stolen public money at one point or got corrupt deals, that's when your corruption scandal is actually exposed, or I think they even planned some on you. Because the loyalty to your party leader is what is protecting you from being held accountable. And it's a sad situation because the entire country is held hostage in the process. The fourth thing is that our systems and institutions are weakened by design and even corrupted. So how do you expect to have free and fair elections if IBC commissioners are deliberately not appointed on time, or IBC is not funded on time for them to begin planning for elections? And then also, how do you expect the members of parliament to carry out their mandate for oversight if sometimes they are bribed to vote in a certain direction? Same to judges and their judgments. Also, when our politicians come to our churches and then they want to take over the service to push their agenda, and some of the clergy have allowed this. Yes, some of these politicians have some of the worst scandals. How then do you expect churches to preach about integrity and morals and justice in our society? Then the fifth thing is ignorance. Now, ignorance in Kenya can be segmented into three. And category one is the people who genuinely don't understand the connection between governance, government, and their lives, which is the economy. And the second group is people who would rather just mind their business and overwork themselves, do as many side hustles as possible so that the Kenyan problems don't have to relate to them. Then there's number three, the government apologists. These ones are heavy defenders of the government no matter what the government does, maybe out of privilege, maybe out of rewards that they're getting from the government. So regardless of whatever category you fall under, your lack of participation is going to be exploited by the politicians. Same to your ignorance. They do that very well. They exploit your ignorance. And that's how they're able to twist the facts and yeah, that's how they're just able to twist the facts and shape your opinions, even though whatever they're telling you is just utter lies. Now, number 6 is the rule of law. And this is straightforward. Most public servants and political leaders think that they are above the law. And it's because we've allowed this to go on for so long. They know that they won't be punished for misconduct or for violating their offices, bribery, corruption, and other offenses. And then finally, poverty. Now for poverty, let's not confuse matters. I know that there's an erroneous assumption that poor people don't vote wisely or don't understand issues, and that is far from the truth. In fact, they understand issues more than these middle class people. So the issue that comes with poverty is that people can become too preoccupied with surviving the day-to-day, such that holding the government accountable becomes the least of their priorities. And you know, you can't really blame them. Poor people have many things competing for both their time and their money. So Kenya is still a very young democracy, and we have made strides for sure. But the issue is we keep taking 5 steps forward and 10 steps behind. So under Kenyatta 1 and Moi, there were many political assassinations. The rights and freedoms that we enjoy today were not granted. The president had almost unlimited power, and the people who were loyal to the president used to be gifted public land like it was private property. And many other forms of corruption took place. Then under Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta, the president's powers are more restricted. So for example, they can only and could only be in office for 2 terms. Then there's also been more involvement by the citizens in the affairs of the government. And we can say that, okay, things are not good right now, but they're better than they've been at some point in life. At some point in Kenya, but economically they're definitely worse than they've ever been, but there's been progress. And also under Uhuru's government, our right to work and our right to afford basic needs have been interfered with and violated seriously because of the consequences of government activities seeping into our day-to-day lives, making the cost of living unbearable, and same to the cost of doing business. Also, over time, despite the gains that we've made, the population of Kenya has grown faster than our economy has grown, which has also magnified the problems that already existed. Then also interfering with elections, a lack of rule of law, corruption, and inequality have remained constant in Kenya. Now, there's a case against democracy, because I know it really sounds wonderful that a majority of us can come together once after every 5 years to select some of our own to determine the fate of our country, right? Again, not quite, and there's one Bible verse that I really love that says, nothing is new under the sun, which means that events in history will repeat themselves every so often. But the thing is, human beings never learn. Now, in ancient Greece, and I'm talking about the BC times, before Christ, some of the most famous philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, and Plato gave arguments against democracy, like getting to age 18 is not and should not be enough to give someone the power to vote. Why? That as much as democracy sounds all wonderful and ideal, does the person voting understand that they are giving someone the power to control many aspects of their life? So in short, are they making an informed choice? And this is not to say that young people don't vote wisely. It's just to say that age might not really be a determining factor when it comes to making an informed choice. And these philosophers also said that people get carried away by charisma and theatrics, and even the appearance of aspiring political leaders, the people campaigning, instead of seeking the truth about the people you vote for and the values that they stand for. And let me give you a fun fact. So Socrates was killed for giving these insights I'm telling you about through a democratic process where the majority of his people voted to have him killed. And guess what the charges against him were? That he was corrupting the youth of Athens with this insight that I'm telling you about how we don't choose our leaders wisely. And how is this relevant to today? Don't we do the same thing to our activists or the people who speak against the government or people in advocacy work like myself? Telling them to mind their own business, mocking them, contributing to propaganda peddled against them, etc. Then we also apply selective morality, like a petty thief deserves to be burnt alive, but a corrupt politician from your tribe, sinimwizi wetu. And even better yet, another one that I hear, where amekuibia. So we also don't like inconvenient truths like we Kenyans have contributed to the rot that we see today in our country because of kitu kidogo mentality, ignorance, and the biases that I mentioned like tribalism and sycophancy. And even just things like privilege make us blind to whatever is really happening in our own country. So we decide to blind ourselves and lie to ourselves that whatever we're being told is happening is not really happening. Or sometimes we just decide that, you know what, I don't have the time to engage in these things because politics is just bad vibes. Gen Z and the influencer generation, you know, about 11 very popular female TikTok influencers in Egypt were jailed for years for encouraging other girls to become influencers and make money off TikTok, just like you guys do. And then, yeah, like most Gen Z guys are doing right now. And they were charged with human trafficking. And this is because Egypt is predominantly an Islamic state, and women having such rights is said to be violating family values and family principles, yeah. And these girls were just dancing and lip syncing. So trust me, you want to be involved in the lawmaking process of your country. Otherwise, people will make laws for you and impose their beliefs on you. Anyway, in conclusion, the most interesting thing I find about the politics of today, especially when it comes to Kenya Kwanza supporters versus Azimio supporters, is that both sides are convinced that they are right and their candidate of choice can do no wrong, and they both believe that they will win. But remember, we can only have one winner, so this is actually very scary to see it unfold. But anyway, the bottom line is that elections are a one-time event, and after that, there are so many avenues to participate in the affairs of your country within the 5 years from when the politicians get into office. You have so many options. For example, you can be more active and direct. There's protests, petitioning, taking the government to court, advocate for something, engage with your leaders to debate certain laws, participate in public forums for public consultations, like they do that for budgeting. Then there's also the more passive ones, like just supporting people who are already there or signing those petitions for something you believe in, and voting. Remember that every single right and freedom that you enjoy today was fought for by someone. And if you don't fight for it to keep it, history has proved time and time again that it's going to be taken away from you. And remember that at the end of the day, you are the real Mheshimiwa, and democracy can only function with your participation. Stick around for my next video where I'll be discussing why people join politics. And if you want to read more, I've put some useful links in the description box. And also make sure you check out the playlist that I've compiled for you that shows what the real history of Kenya is like and the fight for independence and post-independence Kenya. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Cheers.